All right, today we are diving deep into how you manage a massive cloud environment without everything catching on fire. We're talking about AWS Organizations versus Azure Management Groups. We're going to look at how these two cloud giants tackle the exact same problem, but with completely different playbooks.
So here's the big question, right? You start small, but pretty soon you have thousands of resources. How do you keep it all from becoming a total mess? A single account just won't cut it. Both AWS Organizations and Azure Management Groups are built to solve this exact problem, but you're going to see their philosophies on how to do it are worlds apart. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First up, we'll talk about why you even need these structures in the first place. Then we're going to compare the fundamental building blocks. Start from the ground up. We'll move up the hierarchy, and then we get to the really juicy part, the policy engines. By the end of this, you'll have a really clear idea of which approach might be the perfect fit for you.
Look, as your company grows in the cloud, you absolutely need clear lines for things like billing. You need strong security walls between your production and dev environments. A single account just turns into this jumbled, insecure financial black hole. Having a solid structure isn't just a nice to have, it's completely non-negotiable.
Okay, to really get the differences here, we have to start at the very bottom. Let's call them the leaves of our organizational tree. This is all about how each platform groups your individual resources, your VMs, your databases, the whole shebang. So over in the AWS world, the main tool for this is Resource Groups, and they are all about tags. Seriously, think of tags just like hashtags on social media. You can slap multiple tags on one resource. So a single server could be tagged production, web server, and project alpha all at the same time. This gives you incredible flexibility. Now, Azure does things differently. An Azure Resource Group isn't just a label, it's a hard container. It's like a folder on your computer. A resource can only live inside one of these folders, and this is the critical part. Everything inside that folder shares a life cycle. If you delete the resource group for Project Alpha, poof, every single thing inside it is gone too. It's a much more rigid, structured way of doing things.
And there it is, the huge difference right at the foundation. AWS gives you this super flexible many-to-many relationship using tags. Azure, on the other hand, enforces a strict one-to-one relationship with the container that literally controls the life and death of its contents. This one design choice really shapes everything else we're about to talk about.
All right, let's move one level up the ladder. In AWS, the main boundary for pretty much everything is the account. Over in Azure, they call it a subscription. The names are different, but you know what? Their jobs are basically the same. These are the core units you're going to be organizing with all the fancy management tools.
Now we're getting to the heart of it. It's time to build the branches and the trunk of our organizational tree. This is where we use AWS Organizations to manage all those accounts and Azure Management Groups to wrangle all those subscriptions.
Both of these platforms give you some seriously powerful tools to build out these hierarchies. But, as you're about to see, the way they handle things like access control and enforcing rules, well, that's where things get really interesting and really different.
Okay, zoom in on that access control row. This is a game changer. In Azure, you can assign a role, say a security auditor role, directly to a management group. And boom, every single subscription underneath it automatically inherits those permissions. It's incredibly powerful for managing things centrally. AWS, however, works differently. You actually can't grant permissions at the organizational unit level. You use policies to set boundaries, sure, but you still have to go into each individual account to grant the actual roles.
And just to give you a sense of the scale Azure is thinking about, 10,000. A single Azure directory can handle up to 10,000 management groups. Now, this isn't just a big number to brag about. It's a core design choice. It's telling you, hey, go ahead, build out these deep, complex structures that perfectly marry your company.
So at the very, very top of everything, you have the AWS organization root or the Azure tenant. The whole thing lives inside one of these. And a really key thing to know about Azure is that the tenant is deeply tied to a Microsoft Entra ID instance. What that means is all your user identities and access controls for your entire cloud setup are managed from one central place.
And that brings us to what I think is the most critical difference between these two systems. It's not just about how you organize your accounts, it's about how you enforce your rules and your governance across every single one of them. Welcome to the Policy Power Play.
If you want a great way to think about Azure's approach here, think of it as a scalpel. It's a tool that's designed for absolute surgical precision. It's not about setting broad boundaries, it's about controlling the tiniest details of every single resource.
And this slide shows you exactly why that metaphor works so well. Azure policy is baked into the core API layer, so it gets to inspect every single request that comes through. It can flat out deny a developer from deploying a VM that's too expensive. It can automatically append a mandatory cost center tag. It can even deploy a missing security agent if it finds a resource that's out of compliance. It's not just preventing things, it's detecting and fixing them too.
Now, AWS takes a different route with its service control policies, or SCPs. An SCP doesn't actually grant any permissions. Instead, it's a guardrail. It defines the absolute maximum permissions that are available to an account. Think of it like a big fence. You still need to give someone a key, which is an IAM role, to actually open a gate inside that fence.
So, to boil it all down, AWS SCPs are all about controlling what actions a user is allowed to even try to perform. You can't launch this type of service in this region. Azure policy, on the other hand, is about controlling the configuration of the resources themselves, their size, their location, their tags. It is a fundamentally different philosophy on governance.
Okay, so with all that said, how in the world do you choose? This isn't really a question of which one is better. It's about which architectural model, which governance philosophy, lines up best with how your organization actually works.
Let's just distill this down to the core idea. If your main goal is to set up clear, straightforward permission boundaries, and you like a flatter, more flexible account structure, then the AWS model is probably going to feel like a natural fit. But if your organization demands deep, fine-grained control over how resources are configured, and you want those rules to automatically cascade down a really complex hierarchy, well, the Azure model was literally purpose-built for that.
At the end of the day, it's a balancing act. You're constantly weighing the flexibility you get from broad guardrails against the raw power of granular, nitty-gritty control. The right answer really depends on your company's operating model, your compliance headaches, and your overall strategy for governance.
And that really is the final question you need to ask yourself. What's your biggest need? Is it the surgical precision that comes with deep policy inheritance, making sure every resource is perfect? Or is it the straightforward flexibility of just putting up broad permission guardrails and letting your teams innovate within them? Your answer to that question is going to point you directly to the right cloud management structure for you.
We really hope this breakdown helps you design a cloud environment that's way more manageable and secure. Thanks for watching, and feel free to check out our other explainers where we break down more complex topics just like this one.